Good evening, Tony Dottino. Found is Wednesday, February 9th, and the week is half over already, and we're into the second week of February. Time going by quickly, but today I had my annual doctor's appointment with my general practitioner, who looks at my overall blood results, checks on any bumps and bruises or whatever I may be talking to him about. And I certainly had a couple of those today. I talked to him a little bit about my rotator cuff and what I might be able to do to make further improvements in that. And I had a little bit of problems with some of my ear. God, I can't think of the word we call, but the sounds in your ear. God, I can't come up with the right word, but in any case, so I had a couple of things, and my weight was up just a couple of pounds from a year ago, which is more than I wanted it to because I was really doing pretty well. And I basically told him it's really been within the last couple of months where I felt that now that we're into our second year of COVID or third year, I'm probably feeling like, God, is there an end in this? And it's creating some stresses in my life that I just felt like, you know what? I'm a senior. I want to start getting back out to something called normal. I see people at football games and basketball games and different events where they're not wearing masks and there are thousands of people. And I'm like, and you're here over 65. So we talked about that. I said, hey, doc, I'm concerned about COVID. He was addressing a major problem that he is seeing with all of his patients. So I talked to him about mine as it relates to COVID and being over 65 and the restrictions. And we had a good long conversation, which he tells me he's been having with many of his patients. And I put the question out in my header as to, can you understand why he is spending more time with each of his patients and what has changed? That is taking a little bit more of his time with each of his patients, which caused me to be there a little bit longer than I had planned to be, but it was all good. So can you think about why and what would happen in a internist general practitioner's practice that would cause him to be spending a little bit more time? And the answer is twofold. And one we talk about in the elements of brain fitness. One issue is he has opened up his practice again to seeing his patients in person rather than doing med tele. And he does find that seeing them in person does open up a much stronger connection of social interaction. Clue, a social interaction, a much stronger connectivity of them listening and talking to him about the things that he needs to focus on and help them with their healthcare plan. And so he's been closed in terms of having patients come in because of COVID and has only seen uh, emergency illnesses other than COVID. He has a side practice on the other side of his building that deals with COVID testing and how they take care of COVID. So he's kept them out of his main office where he sees patients when they need to be seen for pneumonia or coughs or flu or something other than COVID. But in any case, he's opened it up. And so you have to have an appointment. You come in, they pre-register you with the symptoms, et cetera, that you can come in and make sure you have the mask on and you do all those things. But the first thing was he's opened it up. And so he hasn't seen people for a while. And when I say that, he is Natelli, but he hasn't seen them. So social interaction in terms of a doctor-patient is crucially important. And seeing them personally is another story. Now, why would that take longer? Well, if you step back and think about it, you haven't seen somebody for 6 months or a year, and you've seen them on Zoom, and now you get back together with them in person. What do you think happens? There's to discuss. So I had my list of items. I used the actually loci method. I had four things and I linked them to parts of my body. I said, okay, I got to talk about this, and this. Okay, got it. So I had four things that I talked to them about. And we had a great conversation on those. And then my fifth one was the overall topic of COVID. And that got to an interesting conversation, which I want to share with my Live with Tony audience, which I think is important. So, why are his visits taking longer? Because he's been talking to patients about how well or how much they have cut back on their social interactions in the stress and the worries of COVID. And what he is seeing in his patients is obviously they've put on some weight, they stay home more. Hold on, let me just shut that off. I'll call you back. So how long it's been since he has seen his patients, and then they're not going out and being as socially interactive. And so the social interaction is really missing, and he's finding that is showing up in his patients being more depressed, being more stressed, eating more than they should be eating, being therefore putting on pounds. And he's seeing all this in his practice with the patients that he has got now coming into his office. So he's observing things, people in their present, and things that he can't see their tummies when he's going into Zooms and things of that sort. So he's now seeing them present. They're talking to him more. They're happy to see him. There's a whole different connectivity that he does by seeing patients in person. And so what does that tell you about, okay, I haven't seen him in a while. I'm opening my practice up. Now I see you, and I really love the interaction to be able to see him. I was delighted to see him. I haven't seen him for over a year. I've been restrictive in terms of where and what I do. And so we got into the whole conversation of social interaction and the importance of people seeing people. We talked about the masking. In the mask, you lose people's face, you lose their smiles, you lose their pictures of their eyes and their holistic. Biggest experiment we've ever done on the importance of social interaction. And if the science is true that social interaction makes a huge difference in how people connect, how it enhances their brain function and their health, how it impacts their memories and creativity, their ability to relate and associate with other people. This is going to be the largest case study ever done in that arena. And what I've encouraged people to do in some fashion is find a social group, find some people that you can talk with and at least be a part of. Pick up the phone and talk to people. He haven't went so far. He said, God, we had some relatives in the family that were going to have a 100th birthday. And some people just said, you know what, we have a relative that's going to have their 100th birthday. We're going to go and we'll deal with the COVID. The good news, he tells me, is the latest strain of COVID, Omicron, is not as health is significantly reduced. And so we had that. He had just come from a medical conference from a couple of weeks ago. So he was sharing with me all of this latest information, all tying it back to the risk that we've taken from minimizing our social interactions and the cost that we're paying for it that wasn't relevant, that wasn't present, that we weren't aware of. And therefore, people are paying the price for that social isolation in their health and how they handle stress, what they're doing in terms of eating, how their mental fitness is. And we've talked about that in the 6 elements of mental or brain fitness for the last year at least. And the good news is we're finally getting close to having the online course coming through the Brain Power series that really addresses that, along with 5 other elements that are important for our brain health, brain fitness. And I think we're on needed across the country by lots and lots of people. So his market is limitless. The question becomes, how do you get people to realize these are some steps they can take to make their lives better? And that's what this work is all about. That was my doctor's visit today. So he hasn't been there seeing people for a long time. Now he sees them. It takes a little bit longer, and the importance of social interaction. That's my message for today, and we'll see you back here on Friday.